Hi, my name is Andy. I'm a certified Ninox trainer and programmer, and I'd like to welcome you back to the Ninox Learning Channel. In this class, we begin the 500 level series of trainings on the Ninox no-code database application system. Now, up until now, we have focused on capturing data, building tables, creating formulas. We've worked on getting content into our database. In this, the 500 level training series, we're going to talk about getting information, data, and business intelligence out of our databases, out of our Ninox applications. And we do this through views and forms. In this class, we're going to focus on one particular kind of view, which is the Kanban, sometimes referred to as the swim lane diagram. This is an excellent presentation form to use for grouping and presenting categories of information or categories of records. It originally started with the Toyota Motor Company. Kanban is a word that loosely translates into sign or billboard, but in the context of Ninox, it's used to show us groupings or categories or subsets of data in a vertical or lane presentation method. They're very easy to build. It's an excellent user interface and user experience component, and let's learn how to build them and use them right now. For this database, we're going to be using a simple table, one table that has about 400 invoices in it. Now, these are very simple invoices that were created purely for purposes of this demonstration and training. There's an invoice number, a date, a customer name, the customer type, a couple of choice fields for region and aging, and a few numeric fields where we track the amount of the invoice. We also keep track of the salesperson, and we use a color field to track the customer type flag by color. What we want to do is look at all the different ways we can use a Kanban to view this invoice information. Now, if you'd like to follow along, go ahead and log into www.nioxus.com. That's Nioxus.com. Log into the member portal and go to the templates section and find the free template called Working with Kanbans or Using the Kanban. You can download that. It's open source. There's no password on it, and it will give you samples and examples of the Kanbans and the views you're going to see in this training video. So if you'd like to follow along or like to experiment with Kanbans on your own when the class is finished, go ahead and download that free template, and I think that'll be of great help to you. Now, when we talk about a Kanban, when we talk about any view, we're talking about how Ninox presents content to us. Again, this is the opposite of everything we've talked about until now. Up until now, we've talked about how we get content into Ninox, into fields, calculated via formulas. Now we're talking about getting information intelligence out. Now, we have seen this view, this presentation style, many, many times. This is the default view for any Ninox table, and we call this the listing or the columnar or the multi-record view. And it's simply fields of data, not necessarily all of the fields, but a selection of fields for all of the records in a database table. Now, we can use filtering and sorting to specify subsets or arrays of records to appear in the multi-record listing. And we also can go in and do things like this. We can group, for instance, group on customer name, to then be able to create a drill down tool. Here we have Crystal Lighting as the customer. We see they have 17 invoices with a total of about $530 in product sales, over $10,000 in service fees, and $7,000 in warranty and miscellaneous. And if we drill down or click the pointer next to the customer's name, this shows us the detail of those 17 records. If we want to go look at a different customer, for example, Ctronics, we can just drill down and see the 26 invoices associated with them. This grouping mechanism is critical to creating or bundling subsets of data. Here we have bundled all of Cavern Foods invoices. Here we have bundled all of Leopardstone's invoices or Gale Prizes. The subset of 18 invoices just for this customer are bundled here, subtotaled on this line, and then clicking the arrow next to their name allows us to drill down and see the information. This is a common use and example of grouping in Ninox, and it was very simple to do. We simply went in, clicked on a column heading, and select Grouped. It will give us the grouping icon, which is this stack of lines right here, and that will appear to the right of the one field that we've used to group our data. Here we see our data grouped by customer name. We could just as easily regroup it by salesperson name, or we could group it by invoice number, but since every invoice number is unique, every group is going to contain only one record. And this points out something important to understand about grouping. Grouping is used when you have a few categories or a few sets or classifications that capture all of the data in your table. If we have 500 invoices and we were to group on invoice number, we'd end up with 500 groups and really would not have accomplished anything. But when we group on something like salesperson, we actually have only 6 salespeople, and these 390 invoices are distributed according to the salesperson that closed the deal. And again, we have here this subset of customers. We have about a dozen customers, and the 300 plus invoices are grouped according to customer name. So why does this matter so much when we're talking about the Kanban? The Kanban takes this multi-record listing, which as you can see is a bit of a horizontal presentation. We read the data top to bottom, left to right, whether it's grouped or not. And this gives us a look at the individual discrete pieces of content in a record. With a Kanban, we're going to rotate this or flip it 90 degrees. And instead of looking at the data in a horizontal row by row format, we're going to look at it in a vertical lane or swim lane format. And each record will be represented by a card. This is a card, and we can grab and move our cards around. And within each lane, we can scroll up and down to see the different cards that fit or are included in each category. Now in this case, we're looking at a Kanban consisting of 5 different groupings or categories. And this is based on the customer type field. And there are 5 types: government, large corporation and nonprofit, small business and startup. Now one of the great advantages about the Kanban, in fact, one of the things you can do in a Kanban that you can't do anywhere else in Ninox is you can edit the data with a simple drag and drop procedure. For example, here we have this record for Sunshine Networks, and it is showing Sunshine Networks as being in the large corporation column or lane of our Kanban. If, in fact, this client is not a large corporation but a small business and was simply incorrectly grouped or categorized, I can grab the record, drag it over to the small business column, and there we go. Sunshine Networks is now a small business. If this government agency, Flower Media, was in fact to go nonprofit, I could just drag them over to here, and they would now be a nonprofit, and I will have changed the content of customer type. Here we see the client, we see customer type, nonprofit. Grab the client, move them over to startup, and now when we go look at them, the customer type has been changed. This drag and drop capability is a unique and easy way to change the way we group, categorize, and classify large subsets of records within a table. There are other ways to view data within the Kanban mechanism. Here we see cards or Kanban content that is all alphanumeric. We can include color in our columns. We can include flags or different colors within the cards. So there's lots of things we can do with a Kanban. Let's look at how easy it is to use this presentation tool. Now, as we would do with any new view, we create a Kanban by clicking on the plus sign, which always appears on the far right, to the right, of the last view we have for that particular table. The selected table is the one that's highlighted here, in this case the invoices table. I go all the way over here to find my plus sign, I click on the plus sign, and the new view window drops into view. We're going to give this view a name, and I'll just call it New Kanban, and it has already been selected for us that this is going to be a Kanban view, and we click OK. This will now create a view, a Kanban view, identical to the one that we were looking at just a moment ago. To edit the contents of the cards and the presentation order of this new Kanban, we click on the name of the Kanban and select Edit Columns. And here we see all of the fields and formulas, and if there were any, linked fields that are available in this current table, the invoices table. And on the left, we see the records, the fields that have been selected to be included on the cards presented in the Kanban. Now, it's important to note that the content on each card will appear from top to bottom in the same order that the fields appear in this visible columns section of the Kanban Edit Fields screen. Now, these are the fields that existed from the old Kanban that we copied over. Let's change things a bit. Let's hide all of these fields and create a brand new view. And this is how we get rid of any field or element in a view. We select it and click Hide Column. Now, what I want in this Kanban is to specifically sort by customer flag or customer type flag. So that will be the first column we drag over. I then want to have the customer name, customer type, and I would like to know the invoice total for each one of these invoices. Each card represents an invoice. And then finally, I'd like to know, since we don't have the invoice date, I at least would like to know the month that the invoice was cut. And I'm going to take the month, grab it, and drag it up so it is right below the customer name field. And I will click OK. At this point, we have identified what is going to be on each card in the Kanban. We must, however, tell Ninox what the lanes represent. How do we categorize or differentiate one group of records from a different group of records? And our options are the fields that we have included in the previous step in the view. And as I said, I want to group or bundle my records according to their customer flag, that color coding that we use for each customer record. And there we have it. Now, didn't exactly get what I wanted, but I got exactly what I asked for. The color code of the 4 colors available. Now, what I really wanted to do was use the actual color of the flag that groups or categorizes each different type of customer. What I got was the hexadecimal code used to identify the color to Ninox. So for example, this code in column 3, F2E500, is how we produce this shade of yellow. Remember we talked about masks many classes ago. Here we have a perfect example of a graphic mask, where what is being stored in the field is actually F2E500, but what is being presented is the color that that hexadecimal code represents. So how do we get color fields to serve graphically as lanes or grouping tools in our Kanban? Very simple. And this is something you're going to do a lot of. We're going to go back into our new Kanban by clicking on the name. We're going to click Edit Columns, and we're going to use a formula as our grouping. And you're going to do a lot of this. You're going to use formulas to group or quantify bundles or subsets of data and then draw those subsets as individual lanes. Now in this case, I do want to use the color field, but I need to specify that I want the actual visual color presented in the color field, not the hexadecimal code of the color. So I use the keyword color and specify that I want the color of this color field, not the hexadecimal value of the color. Click OK once, twice, and a third time, and now I have exactly what I want. I've got blue, green, yellow flags, and red flags. Now at this point, I don't really know what these colors mean, but we most certainly have grouped or bundled each individual invoice according to the color flag that was assigned to the invoice. Want to change the flag? For instance, on this invoice right here, grab it, drag it, now it's red. Want to make green and turn it into blue? Drag it over. Blue becomes yellow, yellow becomes green. Again, this drag and drop mechanism is an excellent way for us to change the values in the grouping field of the records where each record is represented by a card. But this still doesn't help me a lot. We need to do a little bit more for this Kanban to make sense. And Kanbans, because they are so visual, are a great place to use colors. We just want to make sure we're using them correctly. So let's go in and do this. Let's grab any one record by simply clicking on it. And let's change the field that we use and the way that we use our color coding. I'm going to go into administrative mode and select this region field. This region field is a choice field, and we have 8 choices. And these are the 8 geographic regions around the lower 48 states of the United States of America. Each one has been given a name. Ninox assigned each one a numeric code. But what's most valuable here for this particular discussion is the fact that we've given each item, each choice, a corresponding color or flag. Now, if we were to go in to this new listing, our new Kanban, edit the columns, and let's hide that formula we created, and let's hide the flag, and let's drag over not the customer type flag, but the region choice field, and watch what happens. Again, select group by region, and now we're getting somewhere. Couple things to observe and recognize. First of all, when using a choice field as your grouping tool or your grouping field, if people have or users have the option to leave the choice blank, this gray column called empty will always be there. It will always be gray, it will always be called empty, and it will always be the first column in any Kanban that is grouped on a field that allows null or empty field content. The next thing to see is that the color that was used for each category is now the color of the lane. Here's all my Northeast invoices. Here's all the invoices that were sent to customers in the Southwest region. Here's Southeast, and here's West. And there's not a lot of scrolling to be done over there. The benefit of using colors inside of a choice field is that the name of the choice becomes the heading of the column, as we see right up here, Northeast, East, Southwest, and we can scroll over to see the other 2 that were hidden, the Northwest and the Midwest. So we have all 8 options. The 9th option that Ninox created, which is any invoice that may have not been assigned any territory or region code. And we can select any invoice by simply clicking on the card to open it up. And as I said, we could change that content of the grouped field, in this case the region field, by simply grabbing the card and moving it to a different column. Let's say, for example, this invoice for Seedtronics really doesn't belong in the Southeast. They're really more south. So we could just grab it, move it over, and we've recategorized or reclassified that particular record. It was as simple as this. We created a choice field. We gave each choice a different color. And then when we created our Kanban, we made that choice field the field that we group all of the records on. The field that we use to define what's in this lane, what's in that lane, where each lane of the Kanban represents a group or a bundle or subclassification of records. It doesn't matter where your grouping field appears in the list. A moment ago, it was at the top of the list. I've now dragged it down so it's at the bottom. It doesn't matter. The grouping field always appears as the heading for each column in the Kanban. Now, if we were to go in and change the order of any other field, for example, take total invoice, put that on top, and then move customer type so it's above month, here we see the old order. Customer name on top, followed by month, type, and total invoice at the bottom. Now that I have reordered or resequenced the visible fields, when I click OK, the way those fields are presented on the card is adjusted accordingly. And the last thing to be aware of is you can further define the order, the sequence or cadence of presentation of each card using the ascending or descending feature that's built into Ninox. For example, for each region, imagine that I want to see the largest invoice on top. And I want the invoices to be presented one card at a time, where each card represents an invoice. And I want them in descending order, with the cards representing the invoices with the highest dollar total at the top and the very lowest at the bottom. Easy to do. Select or click on the name of your Kanban, click Edit Columns. Go to the field that you want to use to set the order, not the grouping, but the order. Click on it and indicate if you want it to be ascending or descending. And in this case, I want it to be descending. Highest at the top, descending down to lowest at the bottom. Now watch what happens to my Kanban when I select this change. All of the records stayed in their lanes, but now they are being presented in order from the most expensive or highest dollar value invoice all the way down to the very bottom where we see the smallest. This invoice here for Flower Media is $716, which is smaller than $724, which is the card here in our Northeast region. Remember, they are ordered or sequenced by grouping. Even though 716 is less than 724, this is appearing higher in the sequence because it is in a different group, and in this group, the Eastern group, there's only 7 records. In this, the Northeast group, there's over 40 records. So we have to scroll all the way down to the bottom. Okay? Now let's look at some other things that we can do using the Kanban. And one of the most popular is to age receivables or payables. Receivables are invoices that we have sent to our customers, and we are waiting for them to pay their invoice and send us the money they owe us. Payables are the result of us buying things on credit, and we now have to pay the people that we bought those things from. Aging is a way for us to see visually in a Kanban, lane by lane, our current payables and receivables, and the ages of ones that might be 30 days past due, 60, 90, or 120 days past due. Here we've created a Kanban called Aging. And the aging is based on the other choice field in the table. Let's select this record with Cavern Foods in the 61 to 90 day outstanding lane. And here we see another choice field. The choices for this field are current, which means it's less than 30 days old, or it's more than a month, 2 months, 3 months, or more than 4 months old, or it's finally been passed off for someone else to attempt to collect. Each of these different aging categories has been assigned a color. And we've tried to use colors that demonstrate visually a sense of urgency. Cool colors are your greens and your blues. Warmer colors are oranges and yellows. And your hottest colors, your most urgent colors, are shades of red, even going into this burgundy or maroon shade that we see for the highest level of aging that has been passed off to collection, which means it's more than 121 days old. A Kanban will automatically adopt the colors on a lane-by-lane basis according to the colors assigned to the choices in the choice field that is the grouping field for the Kanban. Here we have the choice field. We have 6 choices. Each choice has a color. For this particular Kanban, the aging Kanban, we have defined the aging field as the grouping field. We have also defined that we want the sequence of cards to be presented in descending order, with the newest invoice on the top, the most recent on the top, and the oldest on the bottom. So here we see, for example, all of our current invoices, less than 30 days old. The oldest one on top, going all the way back to December 7th of 2018, and the newest one back to January 9th at the bottom. Let us say that this invoice here for Cavern Foods, which is currently in our 61 to 90 day aging, let's say that it is now needing to move over because it's now gone past 3 months old. Grab it, move it over to the next column, 91 to 120 days, drop it, and that's all it takes to recategorize or regroup a particular record in a Kanban. Let's look at a few other things before we wrap up this look at the Kanban view. Aging is a very popular way of presenting cards that represent financial transactions, where we want to know how old the card is, how old the transaction is, how is it aged. Another common way to look at not only financial data, but lots of different kind of data is by month. And here we see a Kanban in month view. What we have done is we have created a field, and in this case I'm going to go into the data model because the field is hidden. We have created a field called Invoice Month. The Invoice Month is a formula. And the formula is take the date of the invoice or the invoice date field and extract the month out of that field. We've also got another field. Here we have Invoice Month. Here we have a different way to extract the month. Same field, Invoice Month, but we have used the month name, not just the month parameter or function, the month name function. So this gives us a couple of different options for how we want to view all of our invoices, all of these customer accounts receivable transactions on a month-by-month basis. I could view them according to the numeric month or the invoice month by dragging it over and making that my grouping just like that. Here's January, February, March, April, all the way over to December on the right. But my column heading is not as intuitive. Obviously, I know what each number represents in terms of month of the year, but I'd like it to actually use the name of the month. So we're going to go back in, edit columns, and we're going to group not by the invoice month field, but we're going to group by the month sort field. And that gets us what we want. It gets us January followed by October. That's interesting. Let's look at the field that we've used. And here we're going to learn a little bit something about dates and how we formulate dates. The field month sort is a formula field. Let's go in and see what that formula consists of. We'll go into the data model and we will go down to this formula, month sort. And what it consists of is the invoice month in text format. So that would be the number of the month of the invoice, concatenated, so then followed by a dash, followed by the month formula, which gives us the name of the month. The problem is this: we're doing this as a text field because you can't add numbers to text. So we had to convert the number of the month to text to be able to concatenate in the name. But when we look at the numbers of the month and look at those numbers in a textual format, we can see that 1 is naturally followed by 1 0, 1 1, and 1 2. Then 2, 3, 4, all the way through 9. Where numbers are being treated as text, we're going to get this order left to right of our lanes. And January, October, November, December, February is certainly not an intuitive user experience. Let me show you a trick you can use to make sure that your month Kanbans are in the proper order by sequence of month in the year. Let's go in and select a record, go into the data model, and go back to that month sort column. And let's do this. Let's format the invoice month using 2 zeros. And what this will do is force the months 1 through 9, January through September, to have a leading 0, which is going to look like this in the Kanban. Much, much better. 02 follows 01, 04 follows 03. We have January at the very beginning, we have December at the very end, and now we have swim lanes or lanes in our Kanban that show us by month when things took place. Now in this case, those things happen to be invoices that were sent out to customers. These could be appointments. These could be the names of employees according to the month of their birthday or their hire date or their anniversary date or the month in which they get their next review or the month in which they've scheduled to take their vacation. We can look at Kanbans grouping by any combination of text, number, choice, date, or time field. Here we see a Kanban by text field. Here we see it by choice field, where each choice has been assigned a color flag. Here we concatenated 2 fields. What we did is we took the associate month sort field. This is a formula that consists of, let's go in and take a look, and it actually consists of the month that the invoice was dated, a dash, and the name of the salesperson who made the sale. Remember I said a moment ago, you can only use one field as your grouping field. But through concatenation, by adding text strings together, you can have multiple fields appear or be in the one field that is your grouping field. Here we have 2 fields, the month of the date of the invoice, the name of the salesperson that made the sale, all concatenated into this one field called associate month sort. We then used that concatenated field to be the grouping field here. And remember, I told you you're going to do this a lot by creating formulas and using the concatenation tools in Ninox. You can create Kanbans that are grouped and sorted on multiple fields at the same time in ascending and descending orders with subsets by simply using multiple fields concatenated together into a single formula field and using that formula field as the grouping metric for the Kanban. So here we see Kanbans where we're making use of the flag, and here we see the color flag here. That's a color field. And we have the month, and in this case 1 represents January. Here's all of Alan Smith's January sales. Larry Brooks January, Paul Young January. And as we move across, we now move into February and March and April on a salesperson by salesperson basis. If we wanted to see the same information not by month and salesperson, but by salesperson and month, we would simply change the order of the fields as they are concatenated together. And let's do that way, and we no longer need that at the end. Salesperson plus dash plus the month of the invoice date. And there we have it. Alphabetically by name of salesperson, and within each salesperson's block or grouping, numerically by month. Again, we have this issue with the months not being in the perfect order, but we already know how to solve that. All we have to do is go in and format this month to be formatted using 2 digits, forcing that leading 0 in the months January through September, and there we have it. Here's all of Alan Smith's sales, January through December. Larry Brooks, January through December, and then on to Mr. Young, and finally Mr. Jones and Susan Carls. Each salesperson alphabetically by name, and within each group, each salesperson's group, numerically by month, January through December. Using choice fields is a great way to add color and to create financial agings or event agings, or just to show you for a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Create Kanbans that have 5 or 7 lanes corresponding to the weekdays or all the days of the week, and each card could represent a to-do. And if you need to reschedule something, grab it and just move it over to a different day. The Kanbans are incredibly flexible, very easy to use. They're built right into Ninox, and I encourage you to give them a look and include them in your next Ninox database application project. All you have to remember to do is click on the name, go to Edit Columns, and use your grouping and your sorting tools to create the lanes vertically and the columns horizontally that will make up your Kanban or your data billboard in Ninox. That's the Kanban. Please join me for our next class in the 500 level series when we're going to look at 2 new views. We're going to look at Gantt charts, and we're going to look at the card view. That's it for now. Go out and experiment with the Kanban, and come back and join us for our next class here on the Ninox Learning Channel. Thanks for joining me, and I hope to see you again real soon. Bye-bye, everybody.